As I'm sure you've heard by now, the pay deal offered to junior doctors in England has been accepted. That means an immediate end to the ongoing trade dispute, no more strikes in the near future, and a relative cooling off period with much less animosity between doctors and the government. Things are slowly returning to business as usual. The purpose of this video though is to go through a recap of events, how things started, how we got to where we are now, the exact terms of the agreement, and what that means for doctors like you and me. What can we expect in the near future? So it's going to be a bit of a longer one, a bit more complex. Everything will be timestamped, so please skip through to the section that's most relevant to you. But from the beginning, this trade dispute has been about doctors seeking full pay restoration. That's restoring doctors' pay to the equivalent value that it would have had in the financial year 2008 and 9. Following which doctors' pay has seen a massive real-world decrease. And in fact, doctors are one of the worst affected groups across the entire public sector. Strikes took place through 2023 and 2024 of various magnitude, up to and including full walkout, including emergency care, during which time care was provided by other types of doctors, including consultants and SAS or SAS specialty grade doctors. That's because these doctors have contracts of their own and so therefore are not affected by trade disputes affecting the junior doctors contract. And since the beginning of the official dispute in October 2022, a combined total of more than 44 days of strike action have taken place. Once this all started, frosty negotiations with the then Conservative government were a hallmark feature of proceedings. Whether it was Steve Barclay, Therese Coffey, Victoria Atkins behind the table, the reality more often than not was that there was not actually anyone behind the table. There was no real intent to even meet and discuss with doctors to try and work things out. Generally, there seemed to be no desire for a deal to be made, and when meetings were had, against all odds, there were leaks, infiltrations, generally a massive sense of distrust from both parties, and no real progress was ever made. But when the Labour Party took over earlier this year, new Health Secretary Wes Streeting made it quite clear that resolving these strikes was very high on his agenda. And in fairness to Wes, that does seem to have been true. He made phone calls when he said he was going to make them, and he met with doctors much more frequently and seemingly on better terms. Within the first few months of the new government, offers were made and now one has been accepted, marking an end to the trade dispute and one that clearly seems to be broadly acceptable to the union membership, and that's something we'll talk more about in a minute. So now let's move on to the next section and take a look at the terms of the deal that has been agreed between the British Medical Association and the government. And all of the following is taken directly from the BMA website. The pay uplift across these 2 years of the dispute will be 22.3% on average. This is made up of an additional average 4.05% for the pay year 2023-24 on top of the previously awarded average 8.8%, taking last year's pay uplift to an average of 13.2%, and this will be backdated to April 2023. The rest of the uplift comes from the pay award for 24-25 announced in July, which gave juniors an average 8% increase across all grades. Doctors remain 20.8% behind in real terms compared to a 2008 doctor. The government will work with doctors to streamline the way in which junior doctors report additional hours for working, to ensure they're paid for their work. There is also agreement to reform the current system of rotational training for juniors, as well as reviewing training bottlenecks that previous governments have imposed, which has manufactured the shortage of consultant and GP doctors. But functionally right now, the key takeaway is this: a total 22.3% uplift across the 2023-24 financial year and the 24-25 financial year. That is an increase of about 4% over previously agreed national pay recommendations. And one of the really key things that you need to understand is that this applies to all doctors in and out of training, those that are either on the junior doctor's contract or contracts that mirror the junior doctor's contract. So regardless of whether you have a national training number, if you're a locally employed doctor, a trust grade, a senior clinical fellow, this deal also affects you. It was really important to the BMA in this case that no doctor gets left behind. So what does this mean for you? Now, the most important thing this means for most people is that you will receive backdated pay, that additional 4% worth of pay backdated to April 2023. And what I'm going to show on the screen right now is a table showing roughly for each grade what you are owed if you are affected by these changes to the contract. Some really important things to note about about this. This money is pre-tax gross earnings and is still subject to income tax, student loans, pensions, any other reason that you would have deductions taken from your payslip. This will not affect any locum or private work done during this time. Only doctors on contract that either are or mirror the junior doctor's contract. It's to be paid by the employer at the time, so if you have since changed trusts or workplaces, it comes from where you were working at the time the work was done. And lastly, this pay is expected in the November payslip, November 2024, about 2 months from now as this video is being published. But before we move on to the last section of the video, and this is a personal plea from me, if you know doctors, especially groups like trust grades or senior fellows or those with slightly unusual job titles, especially if they've left the trust or are, for whatever reason, maybe less engaged with the industrial dispute, please reach out to them and make sure that they know they are owed this money. I myself have spoken to several international medical graduates that I have worked with that have since moved trusts that did not know that they were owed this money. So this is one of those really important times where we come together as a community and make sure that no doctor is left behind. What has response been like then from doctors? Well, objectively, 66% of voting doctors, and again the details will be on the screen, voted to accept the deal. And hand on heart, this surprised me. I thought things were going to be much, much closer to that 50-50 split. And speaking to people at my kind of level, particularly SHOs, foundation doctors, people earlier on in their career, there has been a lot of upset about this. There's no two ways around that. Lots of people have messaged me very unhappy. But that doesn't change the fact that broadly, objectively, the data says that 2/3 of people who voted accepted this deal. That's the maths of it. And on that note, there has been a small but vocal minority of people that I've seen posting on forums and things that are very disgruntled with the BMA, thinking about cancelling their memberships and advising others to do so. I think this is foolish, and here's why. The mandate for the union, that is the BMA, is to achieve full pay restoration. That is clearly what we all want. That is what union members want. We are now about 1/3 of the way towards that goal. So from being around 35% down from when we started, we're now about 20% down. So we're about 1/3 of the way there. And this is a journey that we knew was going to take years, even when we started. What has happened objectively is that the officers have put an offer that they felt to be reasonable to the membership. The membership have agreed, and the membership, that is the voting majority, have accepted it. If you want to change that position or the direction of the union, then get involved, become a rep, get voted in, join the resident doctors committee. You can make changes to these kinds of things. But if you leave the union over this, you need to recognise that that makes you a relative outlier just based on the voting population. That weakens the position of the union because it's now smaller. And see, in my eyes, that takes you further away from getting full pay restoration if that is the thing that you want. So to some degree, there has to be an element of trust the process, things are going well. If you don't like that, then get involved and try and change it. If what you want is full pay restoration, then leaving the union doesn't bring you any closer to that, and in fact, it hurts everyone else. And I expect that in the comments, some people are not going to be happy. I may receive some abuse for this position. That's fine. That's the point of this platform, for me to air my honest views. I'm happy to receive feedback and we can discuss things. So what comes next? Where are we going? Well, as I just said, this still leaves doctors about 20% short of full pay restoration. That remains the goal. That is the mandate for the union. Now, what happens next is that we wait for the next financial year's pay offer to be made by the DDRB, or their recommendations for a pay offer, and that should continue us on our upwards trajectory towards achieving FPR. That means a pay offer next year, so 25-26 financial year, that needs to be at least above inflation, if not significantly above. If we do not stay on that upwards trajectory, then we are fully capable of balloting the membership and taking industrial action again and going out on strike again. The BMA have shown that this can be effective and progress has been made. This is what the leadership are calling the bank and build strategy, banking the gains that we've made and building as we prepare to move on and receive a new offer. And if that new offer isn't good enough, then we are fully capable of mobilizing and doing it all again. And everyone should be prepared for that to happen. That means putting some money aside in case there are more strikes to come, doing your locums now so you don't have to do them during strike time. Be prepared because things are very much not over. This is the beginning, although it feels like a long process. So thank you very much for watching. I hope that's been useful to a few people watching, either inside or outside the UK. If you've got particular questions or you want to let me know what you think, you might think I'm terribly wrong in what I'm saying, so please let me know down in the comments. Take care, and I will see you soon.